What's that? Who there? Whoa.
Let's shift to the final piece, and we'll riff on this to the end. Is the brainstorm, and so people love this, and basically we just talk about, each founder brings on one or more ideas that they've just been thinking about that are not in their space. So what do you got for us?
There was one that we were interested in before this. So it was all around owning peace and quiet. So if you looked at, like, you got headphones on, it's always about more music, more sound. One concept we had was the opposite. You would put something in your ears that would give you peace and quiet. So whether you're on an airplane or in an environment that's noisy, like a loud coffee shop, was to flip it. And we found no one's kind of owned that space brand wise, right? Think of every brand. Every brand has been about noise or premium sound. And so we thought there was interesting space just around peace and quiet and owning that. And you could do products around that, around your ear, in your ear. Think of like when you go to bed and how to make it more tranquil, right? But
was that something like you were going to build on the Moment platform, or
no? We were thinking this is like one of the ideas we had early on instead of Moment was interesting.
Okay.
And another idea we kicked around was all around water and conservation of water, and like think of like your water bottle, how much water you drink, and like again, a classic example of time off, too much free time. You start going to the stuff you love to do and staying healthier. I think you try to do that more in your time off, right? Then okay, now you're running the company.
Yeah. I'd love to riff on both of those. The first one is really compelling, and I'm actually curious, like, what about either that space or the product development? Why do you guys pass on that? And I'm, why do you think no one's tackled it yet?
It's technically harder products to do, right? Because you got into electronics and electronic-based stuff and dealing with sound. But yeah, I was interviewing all kinds of people around sound and sound engineers and what that takes and how sound works. And so technically, it's much harder. So I needed more money to start that kind of thing. Versus, we had made cameras and lenses and stuff before. We made a lot of them, so we could get something like that to market quickly. So I think that's one reason we drafted towards, okay, let's start Moment and get it up and see what happens. Versus the peace and quiet was like, you're kind of building something in or around your ears, right? You're having to work against sound and balancing out sound. So we had looked at kind of like a mobile app that could take in that sound and then basically give it the opposite of that sound to make it quieter automatically for you.
Yeah, cancel it out.
Yeah, but technically it's like, okay, this is like a 1-year project to get off the ground for sure.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that was like 2014, and I feel like Apple, some other companies probably got there with the noise canceling headphones before Apple, but like the AirPods Pro are kind of one of the first compact versions where the noise canceling is actually really good. I know Bose has a few and have been around, but it's interesting because I feel like I constantly am just putting stuff through my ears, whether it's a podcast or music. I almost never have no sound, but I wonder if people would prefer complete neutralization, almost nothing, and just to be trapped in their inner thoughts, or some way to like block out the noise but still give you like the surroundings.
It could have been a feature, right? Unfortunately, of like someone else's headphones or whatever. But I think we thought if you could own peace and quiet, you could make a lot of products that aren't headphone based, right? So think about your rooms and how you can make peace and quiet in the rooms. But I always use kind of the airplane scenario a lot too, which is like you're on the airplane's loud, and you can never get it quiet enough. That was one of the scenarios we thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's a $1 billion market if you can solve that. Even the headphones I use can't get the drone. You can't get rid of the drone. Yeah. So around the water conservation, what was the play there? Was it trying to get people to take more water in during the day, or just use less water? Like,
we kind of thought all of it, but like your drinking of water daily and how much water you drink and those kinds of things. We were thinking like you start with water bottles are a little bit smarter, that tied to you being active and like how much, because we found water makes you feel better in a lot of ways. And so it was more around consumption of water. And with that data, you could do interesting things. And I think that story promotes the concept of water. So from a brand point of view, you could do something really interesting of water and around promoting water and drinking of water and healthier water. But originally the products were like water bottles that would measure how much water you drank. You could tie those to your fitness apps, which we thought was interesting. And so we were seeing back then just a lot of trend towards fitness-based apps. If you remember, Nike was all over this stuff, right?
Yeah, there's been a lot of growth there.
Yeah, and then if you just look at like how much water you use in your house and no one really tracks it. You do when you get the bill, but that kind of stuff we thought was interesting.
Yeah. I also think one of the biggest reasons why people have either legitimate or like faux health concerns that seem real is almost always dehydration. Like people just don't get enough water. It's in my house. My girlfriend doesn't get enough water ever, and she's bought so many water bottles to try to, like, the one with the lines that are like, by noon you should be this far down. The problem is people just don't drink. Like, they just don't drink enough. So I had one more question for you, just around like photography. So, and I'm curious because you've probably run across this. So I'm a little bit of a novice. I love photography. I've got a DSLR that's I'm filming here, and then I've got the phone in my pocket. The thing I always run into is the DSLR is just inconvenient to bring with me. I love taking pictures on it. I love the process. But after I go, like after it's blue hour and then we want to go to dinner, I'm so worried that the DSLR is going to get stolen or broken. What do you think is going to happen? Are phone cameras just going to become so good that people won't need a DSLR? Or like, what's the solve for that you've seen?
What's actually interesting is we found the world doesn't think of it that way. Actually, the world has gotten more into creativity and photography. So we've seen a real rise in like film cameras and like printing things and taking back more textual. So I think it's more we found people are actually into capturing more than ever, and we think that's the most interesting thing. And then they just change their different tools all the time. I think the consumer is thinking less in terms of my DSLR to my phone and comparison. I think that's how the world thought of most consumers thought about it. Maybe 10 years ago, they're really into photography. I think the world thinks of it now as like, oh man, I really like taking images and shots and sometimes use my phone. So I've gotten into film cameras now, and I'm like playing with film cameras, or I'm printing photos and sending it to my family members. So I think that's what we've seen. Same thing with like a drone. People are experimenting with drones and flying those, just another version of a camera. And so that creativity, I think, has been most encouraging to us, is that people are willing to like try different cameras, whether it's flying or in their pocket or a big camera or a video camera. And then the big thread, we've seen a lot of growth just in video. People are more into video and capturing video, whether it's their TikToks, right, or Instagram Reels or stories, and making those better. And video is probably driving more of anything else at this point.
Yeah, I love the growth, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see where we're at 10 years from now, because I think what these tools and then the service layer and things like that you're building, what it's done is effectively, it's a cliche, but they've democratized access to higher quality output for like the average person. So now you don't have to be amazing. You can be okay and still produce amazing quality. And so I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I think you'll see less of the you need to select and hand do stuff and more of the automatic for you, right? Like, I took a bunch of photos, make them look better, please. Right? Versus you having to sit there and like hand edit and have style. And so I think we'll see more and more of that, which is everyone's stuff looks better and better automatically. And it's moved actually into less towards the pure quality, more towards entertaining. And so the ones that have stood well on social have just been really good at entertaining an audience. And they may be better at that than their actual photography or filmmaking. And so the entertainment aspect of this has been really interesting to watch as well.